Hi guys, it's Aura with Divinely Genuine and Aura's Kaleidoscope. Here to go over the full moon in Scorpio with you guys. I have a lot I want to cover in this video regarding Scorpio and the energy of it, and hopefully I won't make it too long of a video. So first, talking about the full moon, it peaked last night or early this morning at 4:11, and that's West Coast time. Now it's making wonderful aspects to Neptune, which is our spiritual life. It's our dreams. It also can be the delusions and things like that. There's a duplicity to it because, I mean, the spiritual realm of things is not concrete like its opposite. Neptune rules Pisces. The opposite would be Virgo, which is the very practical here and now, fine details, you know. Astrology is really neat. It's just like an energetic puzzle, and each has its opposite, and you know, you can figure these things out by breaking it down. My Aquarian moon loves it. All of me loves it, really. It's really neat. So yeah, we've got the moon making a trine to Neptune, which is our emotional bodies. The moon rules our emotions. It rules our waters of our body. This is why the term lunatic was created. You know, on full moons, people's emotions rise, and in mental hospitals, you know, people with really extreme cases, I guess, the lunatic would come out on full moons. You can also witness it in crime and car wrecks and stuff like that. It increases on full moons, you know. The sun is illuminating, our outer expression is illuminating that inward part that controls our emotions. And that's pulling, just as the moon pulls on the tides, it pulls on those emotions of our bodies, of the waters of our bodies. Women will tend to, when they're on like a healing path or real connected to the moon or to other women that are connected in that way, their cycle will start to go with the full moon, which is neat, or it will go with the new moon. As they get more connected to the natural way of things and less connected to, you know, the time schedules we've created in life, or a balance of both, which is beautiful. We've got lots of trines in the astrology. A trine is positive communication between two entities or planets. I mentioned the moon is trining Neptune, so beautiful, easygoing, spiritual, emotional energy. The moon and Mars are making a square, so that might interfere with with how we feel and what we want to do, and then with actually taking the drive or action to do so. Venus is trining Mars, which is beautiful. It's good for projects, relationships, money, and your ambition and drive and willpower to do so. The Mars and Venus are also the divine masculine and divine feminine, so for soul bonds and soul connections, that is really positive communication for those that are in a healthy spot for that type of energy to come in. The sun trines Jupiter today, which is beautiful. The sun being in Taurus and Jupiter being in Capricorn, it's making this Earth trine. Pluto's there as well. We've got Mercury there since it's conjunct the sun. All doing beautiful trines of communication. So that's our outer expression, our expansive growth and evolving self, Jupiter, the higher mind. And these are in practical earth signs, so it's really a good time to a positive influence to get what we want in the physical realm, to have all the comforts the comforts of, our environment, Taurus, of what we're building, Capricorn. So, connect with those desires of what you want to reflect in your reality. If you're, moving or wish for a better place to live or to work, put out the ads, reach out to those people, at least create the vision in your mind, and from there, believe you can get it. And so it is, right? As you take action. With Pluto also in the mix of this trine, that's giving positive benefit to transforming our lives in whatever way we'd like. Pluto is a very powerful energy that I'm going to go into depth about in this video. Pluto rules Scorpio, which is the ruler of this full moon. And I feel the general information out there regarding Scorpio or Pluto energy is very grim and very oh, that's dark, they're evil, or something like that. And it's as you learn more about astrology and these energies, it's so silly because they're all relative into our existence here and to each human being. That old question, what sign are you? And it's we actually each have all 12 signs. They didn't disappear from the sky when we were born. And they're there somewhere, and most likely you have a planet there or asteroids there that are influencing who you are. But Scorpio and Pluto get this bad rap because it is pain and endings, but what gets lost is that it's new beginnings as well. It's rebirth and the transformation of, say, a seed into a flower or into a plant. That transformation is Pluto energy. To be able to transform is the energy of Pluto. Now, Taurus can build, and I guess actually that example would be more Taurus. It's giving life, in which Scorpio is the opposite of Taurus, and it's taking. So that was probably a bad analogy, but so then what it would be taking something that's hidden, taking something that's painful, taking death, and transforming that pain or that experience into something beautiful, or as a natural body does, with the soul continuing on, or whatever you may believe. The death happens and then the soul transforms, right, into the other body, into whatever, that varies and changes. But say a loved one dies, and then from that loved relationship and that pain that you felt, you created an organization or a charity out of the love, well, ultimately out of the pain from the love you felt with that person. You were able to transmute and transform that pain of losing that loved one into something beautiful. So that would more be a Pluto transformation. A seed growing into a flower, that's life-giving. That's a natural vitality of life, and that would actually be Taurus energy. Sorry about that. It's the first thing that came to me. I love the earth, and I love flowers and plants and all the things. So yeah, beautiful trine, Sun trine Jupiter today. Whatever it is that you want to grow and build, act on it as much as you can. I really would encourage everyone at this time, since we're in the age of Aquarius, and as you can see, the state of things being closed and opportunities for jobs, being lessened because of that. That doesn't actually mean that we can't have this wonderful, abundant life. It just means we, as the independent, which rules Aquarius, need to take action for ourselves and ultimately for all of humanity to go ahead and sustain and live in this abundant world. Everything we need, we already have. We always have. We've just gotten really away from that and trusted officials and corporations for our vitality, and It's not the actual truth that's working behind the scenes. The truth is you're not just a consumer, you are a creator. So pursue what makes your heart happy, and today's a really great day to do so. Any day is a great day to do so, right? But you've got added good juju energy. So let's see. Talked about the Pluto, Mercury trine Jupiter as well. It's just having our communication in our mind in that energy as well. So I want to speak about a really good practice. It's good for the health, for body, mind, and soul, but definitely good for the physical health, okay? And it's something that I was led to after spending several months being vegan and drinking really good Kangen water, and then falling away from that diet and going back to just like an all-American diet like I grew up on, And it was just, me feeling like setting my intention into my food and drink, knowing the power of the word and power of thoughts, how it can literally change the water we're drinking, which is a truth that I believe in still. And I wasn't doing that, but that was my plan to begin with. But of why I fell away from such a good diet. But I wanted to share this with you because it very much has to do with Scorpio and Pluto energy. Not only did I fall away from my diet being the best energy, and that's really how you can, understand if you have trouble, like, wait, if I can set intention into my water and my food, then I can just eat whatever I want. And that's true to a certain extent, like that. I do love meat as well, but I've grown to not, because it's not good for my body, right? And so meat, no matter the intention you put in it, with intention, it's better than without intention, because you're adding, a beautiful energy over it, I feel, but it's still dead meat. It's still dead fuel that you're giving your body. Versus like a good salad or piece of fruit or hummus or nuts or beans, which are living food, which are giving actual life to our bodies. And the same when you get like Kangen water, which I just am amazed by it. It's structured living water. It's it's sold by a machine, and if you look up a Kangen, Kangen distributor in your area, they'll hand out free gallons, or they may charge like $1, And this machine that gives us water, it mimics the Earth's, like, I forget the science of it, honestly. It mimics the Earth's, like, platonic things, and sorry. But it's structured living water, and I can't unsee this. When I went to a demo, it's the only water that we have available to us that mixes with oil. So you can imagine how that flushes the body of toxins, right? Well, it's just like when people, like, especially in mental health things, if we have an issue and we're given a medicine, when that medicine is working, we tend to be like, oh, I'm fine. Like, I don't even need it. And it's like, no, it's not that you don't need it. It's because you're taking it that you feel fine. And that was really my experience with Kangen water. I knew that I could feel in the beginning when I first started it, the benefits of like the amount of, Scorpio is a water sign too, before I bore you with my water talk. And we are made of water. We all know this. Water is so vital and so important. But let me not get too far off track. But I had proved it to myself, and I loved it. My energy was great, and going away from it and falling into a relationship with someone that I neglected my own intuition and my own boundaries, and could have been just a light to this relationship in interactions and not made it this full-blown thing where I denied my own intuition and things like that. So it got very unhealthy, very toxic. And when you're in the spiritual healing community, unless you've got your whole shift together, you can easily get in these codependency things of like, well, I'm going to help this person, it won't affect me. Eventually it does, though. Energy is very real. It's very real for our food. It's very real for our well-being. And if you guys are familiar with human design, my personal one, I have so many open channels. So my environment, what I surround myself with, is very important for what I'm absorbing. So I had set myself up for this really bad recipe for lower energy to take hold of my body. And not to mention the state of the outer community with Corona. You know, we're wearing masks and going to stores, and you know, you can't just plug up at Starbucks and go on Wi-Fi to do your business. And you know, things became very stressful very quickly in my life. And I wanted to tell you guys about this because I learned this really, really beautiful practice, and really learned a lot about lower energies or darker hidden energy or Scorpio energy, pain, fear, hidden things, grief, sorrow, all of these energies. And they don't even have to be ours if we're healers, you know, or if we're just good friends. And, you know, every relationship we have as mom, sister, dad, brother, you know, whatever it is, we're absorbing each other's energy, we're sharing energies. And when we don't know the proper ways to get rid of these energies, and we're also feeding ourselves a poor diet, you know, I got out of doing my own yoga and stress and stretches, and, you know, it was so terrible that I neglected my own self-love the way I had. I mean, because I'd learned these lessons. But, so I had a health scare one day. I know it was like a Friday night, and I was just laying there, and I got like a real sharp pain in my heart area. And then I had like a very weird pain in my kidney. And it doesn't sound like much when I tell the story over, but the inner fear that all of a sudden came over me of death, because I've never had like a health scare like that. I've always, like, you know, been free of like flus and this and that and all kind of stuff. And, you know, I go to the restroom like a lot, and I swear that has a lot to do with it. I'm always going like pee. I'm drinking a lot of water. Maybe that's why, but when you gain the knowledge of diet and how important it is, and then you backtrack, you know, just like anything, it's almost worse. But anyway, I was so scared in this moment. So it wasn't even just like, oh, we got a pain in your chest and a pain in the kidney. Well, we have Corona going on. The last thing I wanted to do was go to the freaking hospital or a doctor. Who knows what? I mean, I try not to be a conspiracy theorist, but when you're aware, oh, yeah, no. I mean, I try not to participate in Western medicine, you know. But all I could do was cry out to God, like, God, no. I don't want to die, you know, like the pain. It was just so real with knowing the timing of things and feeling that in my body and understanding that it was emotions. It was the company I decided to surround myself with, though I knew I should have cut it long ago, and that it had taken hold in the body. And I knew that I needed shamans. I knew that I needed Eastern medicine, and I knew that I needed Kangen water back in my life, and I do not work for them, though I do want to, because as an Aquarian moon sign, water bearers bringing healing water Like literally, that's all we need is the right water that the earth once made and still does, and like, some foreign freaking jungle rainforest somewhere, I'm sure. Kangen! Yes! But to be able to have it to each and every person, I mean, this, it's my dream and vision to have this in all of the homes, of course, and then clinics and things like that. But that's a whole another video. I mean, if they have the actual healing element, then what happens with pharmaceuticals? You know what I mean? What was I saying? So I just, cried out to God, like, no, I have so much I want to do. And I thought of my daughters and all this metaphysical knowledge that I wanted to leave them, and my son as well. Of course, my son as well, but my daughters are older and I can talk to them. And unfortunately, my son's dad tends to get in the way of that relationship. But I've never had that experience, a health scare, and it really gets things into perspective. And, not only did I have that one relationship and that bad diet, but I started to, as I broke away from that relationship, I just started to constantly attract this same type of energy, only like in worse situations, or, and it, as I choose to live my life in a state of surrender and as a projector in human design, knowing that I have a certain flow to how I do live my life, and being in tune with my intuition, sometimes I can put myself in these situations that are scary. When I went to Virginia to see my oldest daughter, I was in a scary situation where I had attracted almost the same type of energy as this guy I was seeing, but it was like an older version, and the East Coast was really crazy to experience in this way. Some people there, they're ready for war because it's all they know, and as soon as Corona came out, they're like, everybody can tell the world's changing. We all are in tune to our intuition, but not all of us are aware of all of the programming conditioning from history that's on our minds. And so this individual that, my healing path flowed to help, had, was such a beautiful individual in ways, like all of us are, and then had this very toxic side as well. And before I knew it, I felt endangered, and I felt trapped, and, all of this stuff I was experiencing with my ex. And I'm like, why is that? How in the hell can I, fly across the states, and here it is right in front of me again, but almost worse and foreign, and, and it's like, that's the law of attraction. As we surround ourselves with energy, it becomes a part of our energy, right? And so I started to attract it, and I was, more awareness of, oh shit, I gotta make these changes. I gotta climb back up the spectrum of energy. It's not so much good and bad, light and dark. There are many, many expressions of ourselves, many expressions of our sin or our shadow, right? Of these different energies, So it wasn't just like going from light to dark. It's like going back up this beautiful spectrum of betterment, better energy. Let me get myself to that better state of healthy. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So fly back to California, and this was before the health scare. Sorry, I'm kind of not the best planner with my videos, though I did try a little bit. There's beautiful moments in it all on this path of surrender, on a spiritual healing path. My path flowed to this individual. It was real late at night, midnight to 1 maybe, or 11 to 1, I'm not sure. But I couldn't sleep, so I started walking around, I was just so anxious, because you see the astrology on one hand, and then you see the state of the world and people, and it's so far. It's so far. It's like, okay, Age of Aquarius, humanitarian. We should be fighting our freedom and our independence. And then it's like, ooh, the powers of control. And everyone's just putting on the mask. And, oh, the beaches are closed and nothing's happening. And I was starting to get overwhelmed by it. So I'm walking, and my path crosses with this individual. And he asked me for a light, for a cigarette lighter. And I had one in my bag, so I'm searching for it and just being nice and, like, yeah, no problem. And, when you're connected to your intuition, you will know right away. I will know right away if it's a dangerous situation, but that's why it's a constant staying present thing, right? And this individual expressed to me that he was going to go rob a store. And I find it beautiful that during all of this closing of everything, that nobody's been looting. I mean, I've been in California, Texas, Virginia, like I've gone all over, and there's no looting. And it's beautiful because in our history, it has been. And in astrology, not that we've gone through this, but shit, we go through a hurricane and it happens, right? Like in New Orleans. But with this particular individual, he was going through a child custody battle. He needed money for his attorney. He had a bartending job, and, coming from restaurant business, I get that. You can bank as a bartender, and he had done it for like years and years and years. And he was in his 30s, later 30s, maybe early 40s, I don't remember exactly. And so the beautiful part was my path crossed his, and he chose not to pursue that. Of course, I talked him out a little bit. We sat there, smoked some cannabis together. It's legal where I'm at, by the way. And not only is it legal, it's used as plant medicine. It's beautiful. And, I'm perfectly fine with hearing someone's vulnerability and truth and being there, because I know most people won't. But it was that same lower energy that I didn't need right then. I was glad to be of service, right, to the light. I was glad that I was used in that way by God, the Creator, Source, Spirit, whatever it is you want to say, the light that gives life. I was grateful for that, of course, because it's beautiful to experience, and I already know that's part of the path, right? But my mind was like, well, why? Like, why am I continually attracting this energy? And it was still needing to break away from that energy that I had kept myself around to. And, as a healer, yes, we will have those moments. But it was because who are you? What good is that light if you're not willing to bring it to those people? But after the health scare, which had been like not long after that experience, I mean, because he got to talking about so many crazy things, about things that my soul just couldn't even stand, like, but had beautiful as well, he's a human, But the darker, lower energy, as I've learned, well, like, I just want to say, he said something about, if someone harmed his child, which people get very proud. We're conditioned that family's everything, and that, our child is our responsibility, and it's our thing, and it's ours, and it's like, these children are wiser than you. They are from spirit. They are so pure, and they are protected, But I remember him saying if anyone hurt his child, that he would hurt theirs back. And that's when I just felt sick, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. How could anyone harm a child? One, and I know it happens. I'm aware of it. I actually have lived that, But, to be in front of me, in my presence, stating this and not feeling any sort of, that was his truth. And so here I am trying to spread the awareness of, well, listen, this is a child, no matter whose it is. If there's a child walking down the road and there's a need for that child, us as adults on this planet need to care for that child and every child. But the point was that there's a magnetic pull to darker energy, to fear energy, to the same Scorpio energy that we find pain, fear, grief, sorrow, jealousy, envy, anything that weighs down. There is a pull, and that pull ultimately is to death. And I had to really wake up to that when I had that health scare. And so I want to teach you this little practice. Let me back up and say, as that's the job. That is one of the jobs of the master of the dark, we'll say, which in history and in our conditioning, we have been taught that we shouldn't look at that it's scary, that it's evil, that we need to ask for forgiveness outside of ourselves. Evolution is so beautiful. There's a point, sex is part of Scorpio energy, not just sex, intimacy, being able to feel the deepest of our intuition and emotions. Transformation, like I mentioned, happens in Scorpio. But it never gets that credit. And so recently I was led to do this. I could feel in my body the emotions that needed to leave from all of the pain that I held on to, that I didn't want to release, because that was also tied to moments of love, Our greatest pain is always tied to love, it seems like. And so in this practice, which I like for you guys to, if you feel led or that it resonates, one, get yourself Kangen water, Kangen, and two, breathe deep. Breathe deep. No matter what you're going through, if you're losing your corporate job, if you're losing your relationship, if you don't know what to even think or believe, breathe deep. And know that Spirit has not left us during this beautiful change, and it is a beautiful change. Freedom gets to reign this time. Independence, humanitarian, innovativeness, all of this beautiful stuff. But back to understanding the lower energies. So yes, there's a magnetic pull because dark energy, Scorpio energy, ultimately takes your life. It's not that it's evil. It is one of its natural laws and jobs. It's what it's always known to do. Okay? Now, parts of this video may be, for the very aware, very conscious. So if I lose you, check back, when as your awareness grows, and it might resonate better if it, but everything has energy. Everything is energy. Our words. That's why I thought that, putting words into my food was enough, though I didn't do it. I wouldn't do it like I should have. But our words, our thoughts, everything in this existence is energy. And so if we think of Scorpio, dark energy, as what it has been over the generations, it has been called the devil, the Grim Reaper. It has been shunned at, not looked at. At one point, pregnant women were not allowed to be shown on TV. It has been not okay to cry and embrace those emotions, to release them. you know? All of this conditioning has, I feel, on a energetic level, made that darker energy feel unaccepted, angry. Angry for what? Angry enough to pull for death, and what, or to just be acknowledged for what it does. And what does it do? It ultimately brings us to light, brings us to those higher energy spectrum. If you just imagine a rainbow, a spectrum of colors, the pain in our lives is meant to evolve us, to bring us closer to the light. And that dark that does that as its job for us humans never gets credit. Never gets credit until now. Until the age of Aquarius, where we have evolved enough and we have enough technology at our fingertips, which is knowledge, to understand that it's not this deviling God, that it's all within us as well as outside of us. And that it is okay to accept our pain. It is okay to look at our anger, to look at our grief and our sorrow, and not even okay, but if you do not, as I experienced, it takes root in the body. And it causes so many diseases and so many mental health issues. So the practice that I would like to do with you, or tell you about, it goes like this. Every sadness, every hardship that you have ever gone through, it's in your body somewhere, okay? Most likely. That energy of it is. Because we hold on to those so much more. Because it doesn't hurt if it wasn't important, right? So I want you to think of those things, and I want you to slowly pull them out. If you can feel it in your body where it is, slowly pull it out, or just picture it. Sorry, you can't see my hands, but I'm like, picture it. And just put it outside of yourself. This is what I did just intuitively. One evening. And so, and you want to put it all together and understand that energy is real. And so put all the pain that you've experienced, the deepest ones, and speak to it and give it permission to come out of your body. And speak to the darkness, the shadow side, whatever it is you want to give this lower energy a name, and say, thank you. Thank you, pain, because I was able to transform and evolve into a better individual. Thank you, pain, though it wasn't comfortable. And thank you, master of darkness. Like, I don't know what terms to use, because all of this is new and it's just intuitive, But if there's a master of light and a master of dark or something like that, and that's still just this duplicity. But if it's like, whatever name you want to call it, we can call it anything. We can call it anything. We'll just stay with astrology, right? And we'll say Scorpio energy, Pluto energy. It's because ultimately that is what it, when you break it down, it's what it is. But speak to it and, thank you, pain, for doing your job. Thank you, Scorpio and Pluto influence, for these great lessons and teachings of the most painful experiences, the most intimate experiences. Because without those, I wouldn't have gotten to this evolved, lighter being. as you start to go through and remember all of your pains and your griefs and your sorrows and reflect on how that really did evolve you and bring you to this place of more awareness and of light, can we then bring it to ourselves to talk to that entity that's created that contains all your pain and fear and grief and sorrow and jealousy and envy and death of loved ones and hidden things and heartbreak and whatever it is, right? Drug use or, all kind of stuff, or addictions is probably the better word. They've called marijuana and they've called plant medicine drug use, and some drugs themselves, pharmaceuticals are drugs. Some of these things, a lot of these things add to our awareness, add to our light. Psychedelics will cause brain activity. Well, that's adding light. Light bulbs are going off. I would say to do these in very healthy, safe environments with people you trust, in a beautiful spiritual ceremony way to get the best results in those, But addiction, because addiction is like a chain on us. But if we can speak and meditate and get all of that out, and then as we feel it outside of ourselves and we realize, oh yeah, I didn't have all that as a child. I didn't have all that last year, and it's really weighed down on me. If we could look at it and feel it outside of us, and I say look at it, but imagine it outside of you and feel that it is outside of you as you've commanded it out. And it's not that it wanted to be there. Mainly it wasn't acknowledged. We have not been taught to acknowledge that pain that leads you to your light, to your better self, to more awareness, to learning lessons, to not repeat past mistakes. That's all light, because knowledge is light. The brain being able to understand things is light. The soul and the heart are light. The brain can be very tricky too. You have to be careful with the brain. It's to be used as a tool. Not to create stories that don't exist, which it can do so slyly. I've experienced, and it's odd because we all know that we're right, and it's really about filling into the body constantly and staying present and aware and connected to the intuition, to not be tricked by the mind. But back to this practice. So then if we bring ourselves to the awareness that, wow, I already feel lighter. I can acknowledge my pain and not just suppress it, deny it, not feel it or give it a moment. Once I acknowledge it and get it out of my body, what do? Well, what I did was I loved it, because without it, I would have stayed in the dark. My awareness couldn't have grown. The light of knowledge wouldn't have been exposed to me. The being able to be blessed on a spiritual path to be a healer wouldn't have evolved without the great pain of not having my children and experiencing awful, my children are alive and well, and I do have my children, but not having them in the traditional way. If the system hadn't wronged me, I wouldn't be on the light side fighting for rights of people and for ourselves, and fighting for natural healing, and I say fighting, and I'm not at all, but holding the light, steadfast holding the light. And so for you, whatever your heartbreak did that evolved you to. And maybe you can't think of it, or maybe that's where you're at, this full moon. Understand, Scorpio energy turns things into diamonds, turns coal into diamonds. The heat will, the pressure transforms to gold. It's the most powerful energy. It should be respected and loved, because we don't get to the light except through it. And it's a master of getting you to the light. It is the vehicle, in a sense, though we are the vehicle. It is the current way in our existence that we learn the lessons, through the shadow, through the pain, through the hard, tough experiences. Does it have to stay that way? Absolutely not. I hope we evolve to be a being that chooses life and chooses abundance and chooses love without needing to learn these lessons that don't feel good. But you see, we've gone through all kind of things in our conditioning and programming of being taught to not look at this energy and to definitely not embrace it. But listen, that is a part of you, and it will always be a part of you. And for me, my greatest pain is deeply connected to my children, as the custody and the courts interfered. And so yes, I'll let go, but I also will never, ever forget, because it's so closely connected to the deep love of my children, you know? And so I dare you to change your mind and embrace not just the good parts of yourself. You're a human, not, and I see beauty in all religions, and I see beauty in all philosophy, and I see even more beauty when we're truthful and honest with ourselves, which is Scorpio. It reveals the truth. It discovers what's hidden, and it brings it to light or life. In my understanding of these energies, I can understand how someone with an innocent heart and a good heart on a spiritual path could be just about feeling like they're about to die. And it's like, oh, that magnetic pull, that's just what it is. It pulls into the dark hole of abyss, into death, which also can bring you to one form of life. And it's been used to doing that. It's been honored in that way. But I encourage you to embrace all that is within you of your experience, to get those lower energies out of the body, and to love them for what they brought you to, the lessons, the light, and to understand that that energy in us all for lifetimes upon lifetimes needs your love, because it does the greatest work, in my opinion, of transforming. Light just is, life just is, and I can't wait to explore more of that energy. But to be the one who, imagine a warrior that has to go into the deepest dark things and has to give a child pain. We learn the earliest lessons as children. This dark warrior has to bring each and every one of us some form of pain, because that's how we've been brought to the light. That's what gets us to move and transform to light. So the Scorpio energy is not just to bring death and endings. Absolutely not. It is a powerful warrior. That feels better than to say master of darkness. Yeah. It's a powerful warrior that deserves, as a full, whole human, for us to bow, not to devil worship or this and that astrologers and tarot readers and witches, which are people connected to the natural way, to the natural healing herbs. It is not to say to bow down, but to honor that energy that has, because of conditional and generational plagues of understanding, honor it, because without it you wouldn't have light in this current form. One day we won't need the pain of Pluto. One day we'll just choose it. But until then, as we are evolving humans, that's how we learn our lessons: the grief, the sorrow, the pain. But this esteemed master, this warrior, deserves our love if you appreciate the ability to learn, the ability to enjoy nature, the ability to have life, the ability to have sex, which creates healing and creates a child. All of that is impossible without the energy of transformation. And so this beautiful energy that is deadly, that is toxic, because it's how we learn right now, currently. Love that energy within yourself. Call it out of your body to save yourself and free it. This energy deserves to be free. It was never meant to stay prisoner in our bodies. It's never meant to stay prisoner as a known entity. We should respect it, because nothing else brings us to life and to the light. So talk to it and wish it to be free. And that's what I did. And my first thoughts were, I love you so much and I thank you for the lessons, because I needed more light and I wouldn't have got there on my own. I would have stayed in Mediocreville, like, oh, I guess this is okay. But that intensity and that intimacy and that depth of our soul, wanting more, searching for more, the feelings of pain and no, this isn't it, drives us back, transforms us to the light. I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but I just hope that it's making sense, So wish it out of your body is the practice. Give it love. See it as your experience, your human experience. For so many years early in my awakening, which was about 2014, I didn't even want to get to that point because it was so tied so closely to love, which it usually is, because that's how we really can transform. Wish it out of your body for all those deaths, all those griefs, all those sorrows, all those miscomings, all those sins, all those desires. Scorpio is also obsessiveness and desire that we keep hidden. Recently, I became aware that I had created stories in my mind based off of feeling with certain people that weren't really even in my actual life, but I had created these beliefs. And as they became shown to me, it was to really honor my own truth. It's like, okay, well, that is definitely, there are facts that you have to state, what's in your current reality. And what seems dreamy, that's illusion, And whether it's a knowing that will come to be, until then, holding on to stories in our minds, it's very unhealthy. And when it's in a dark way, I'll say dark again because Scorpio, it is dark, it's hidden. It was hidden from myself. because I had connected it to like, oh, I know that one day, based off of a feeling, not based off of, based off of, we can base things off of signs and numbers and intuition. And, once you're out of touch with that, and you're just holding on to a story, that is just a delusion in itself, an illusion, right? Delusion, illusion. And very common with Pisces spiritual energy. And when it's of the darker, Scorpio will take an obsessive thing, so then it'll start to overdo the playing of this. And, I feel like I'm a pretty sane people, and, as my awareness grows, thankfully to my teachers and people I'm connected to and the beautiful awareness brought by the internet, I'm so grateful that I can shine light in these places, because that weird energy of our minds obsessing, especially when at one point you feel it's connected to the intuition, that's how it gets you. And that brings me to, when you speak to this dark energy, the Scorpio energy, these lower energies that are meant to transform you to the light, the higher energies, but that will pull you down because it's magnetic. Because I had to really figure out, like, okay, how is it such a great teacher, yet there is a deadly pull? That's why homeless people stay homeless, drug addicts stay addicted. If darkness, we'll say, was thriving at any point in all of this conditioning, generation after generation, it was in that, oh yes, everyone acknowledged it was death and it was dark, right? And so it's like, oh, well, if that's all the credit I get, I'm gonna fucking be successful at that part, right? Well, in this new age of Aquarius, and as we are free enough in ourselves to make our own opinions about our spiritual walk, about our religious views, about our own feeling and our own feeling, and what do I want to say? Feeling of energy and the embodiment of energy. And learning, be your own scientist, learn for yourself. Finally getting away from looking outside of ourselves for wisdom, But as we can say, yeah, I know the pain of my life and the grief of my life and the sorrow of my life and my obsessive mind at times and the beautiful intimate moments of intimacy and depth and mystery and hidden things. I know all of that isn't evil. So why then do we continue to believe that there's this evilness? There is, it pulls towards death. But what if we were to take all of that that's within you? It's just life experiences. It's the same realm of that evil energy. It's just not built up to that strong. So we take it out and we love it. And we thank it. And then, this is what I did. At first, I encouraged it to be free out of my body. And I realized, wow, it's been entrapped there. Because I didn't have the awareness to send it away. It's probably been waiting for me to do that the whole time. And a lot of toxins come out of the physical part, right? But there's the energetic part. So then you love it. And you send it away. You can send it away. And then that, it made me think of space. Because where does energy go? In that black hole, right? But then what I did, I started to do that. And I was like, you know what? With all this change going on, and knowing the master or the knight or warrior that it is to bring people through these painfulness in order to bring them to the light, I encourage you to be free, but I also encourage the darkness out of my body, right? The pain and all the things, the lower energy, the Scorpio energy. And I encouraged it, you could be free and go to that dark hole in space. Or as you move on, if you move on to other lives, I encourage you to not have to, this is what I was saying to the entity, right? to not, because that's what energy is. I couldn't see anything, I just knew I had it in me. I could feel it in my body, not like a demon, but just over time, all of that takes root in the body. And so I said to it, if you move on to the next individual, I want you to take the love and encouragement that I've given you, Scorpio energy, and to know that you are very intelligent. Darkness has an insane amount of intelligence. It has to. It's bringing some hard-headed individuals into pain to be able to get them to transform to the light. That's a hard job. And so it has an intelligence to it. And I encouraged it to not take lives, but I encouraged it to get creative and to understand that it was its time to live differently, and that it was free from having to pull people down to earth, down to death, sorry. That it could, as it was very intelligent, that it could lead people to the light in an intimate way, because that is also ruled in Scorpio, into discovering themselves at the deepest level. And that for God, who knows how long, if ever, the awareness of Scorpio and Pluto energy, and to be esteemed and embraced as just a part of ourselves that transmutes into the light, transforms to light, that it had the intelligence, and that this age in Aquarius would be its time to actually be respected and embraced, and not feared and shunned and asked for forgiveness, when it brings us to our highest possible existence. I hope that made sense for you guys. I've got to go release some toxins in the bathroom. I hope you guys have a beautiful full moon in Scorpio, and I'm available for readings. You can go to Facebook, you can comment here, you can go to my Instagram, Divinely Genuine on Facebook, Aura's Kaleidoscope on Instagram. And if you'd like any more, information on this topic, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope it brought great awareness and light. Remember, knowledge is light. The withholding of that knowledge is to keep us in dark. Cheers to you guys. Love you all. Peace.